Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Hello. In this week's episodes, first is Forsaken. Clark is finally going to tell Lana. Pete gets kidnapped again, and Lex has 24 hours to get the dirt on his dad. Then, in the explosive Season 3 finale, Covenant, Lionel's off to jail, Kara shows up to take Clark to Jor-El, Jonathan reveals the deal, and Lana is off to Paris. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello and welcome back. This is our Season 3 finale. Joining me as always is the glorious Alan Muir.
I nearly laughed when you're trying to be the serious announcer and like trailer announcer guy.
Oh yes. So this first episode is tying up a lot of loose ends. It is a fine episode. It is our farewell to one of the series regulars, and then our second episode is like one of the craziest season finales, super cliffhangers that any show's probably ever given.
Well, the first episode is also a farewell to one of the worst characters.
Yes. In Emily?
Yes.
So, yeah, why don't we jump off with this first episode? So, basically, Lana is thinking about this thing going to Paris. She goes to Lex. He upgraded her tickets to first class so that she can leave whenever she wants, or some actually, this is after 9/11. I don't know how this actually worked because this is a post 9/11 world, but you can't really screw around with planes. But somehow he gives her a magical ticket that she can leave to Paris whenever she decides. Clark shows up at the mansion. He's like, oh, what's Lana doing here? But she goes, oh, I'm just getting some tips from Lex. She leaves, and Lex basically is like, if you're not going to be honest with Lana, then you have to like let her move on, and you need to let her go so she can like go on with her life, which is actually pretty good advice. But as we go forward, like we've been hinting at, there's been like little tiny nuggets of Lex's feelings for Lana this entire season, as well as this is the beginning of the deterioration of Clark and Lex, like heavily in these last couple episodes. So from here, we pop into the character that you so despise, Alan. Is this like your second most hated character?
I just don't care about the character.
Yeah. Well, after this,
the character could be a Kryptonian and it would be worse than Crypto.
So we visit Emily Dinsmore. She is in her pseudo bedroom, like that we left her last time in the lab. We flip around to the two-way mirror, and there's a tech telling her that it's time for bed and turns off the lights. Emily then flash phases, like the Flash phases through the walls, because basically her powers are the Flash's powers in this. Am I wrong? Like she basically can move super fast, right? That's her ability.
Yeah, sort of.
And so she phases through a wall. She goes to the Talon and sees that it's being taken apart and finds the new owner, like, looking at stuff. And then she Earth-Dawns the guy.
Yeah.
She phases her hand through and destroys it.
Through his heart.
Yep. So from here, Clark and Pete are playing basketball. Pete's like, yeah, my mom's going to move to Wichita, and I've kind of not really been addressing my parents getting divorced. He says, I think I'm going to stay in Smallville with my dad so he doesn't miss out on senior year. And Clark kind of tells him, it's like, yeah, I've been thinking about telling Lana my secret to prevent her from leaving. And then we pop over to the school, and Clark asks Lana if she wants to go to dinner. She doesn't think it's a good idea, but he's like, I need to tell you something that I should have told you a long time ago. So she's like, okay, fine.
Yeah, she's sort of tired of his shit.
Yeah, she's exhausted by the constant like push and pull of Clark, which she should be. Like, I don't mind this entire idea. It's just that it's what it brings about is the dumbest bullshit ever in season 4 and 5. Like, it is so beyond dumb what ends up coming to fruition. It's not the actual, like, this act. It's just, I hate it because I know what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, her character sort of peaks halfway through the series, and she's in it for 3 goddamn more seasons.
Yeah, but the problem is they kind of don't know what to do with her, especially once they introduce, we'll get to, when we get into our next, when we get to season 4, once they introduce Lois, there's like they have no idea what the hell to do with Lana. Because now it's like, okay, you're introduced a character that we know that Clark has to end up with. So then how do we like get rid of Lana? And it turns into this whole weird thing. So from here, we see Lionel meeting with Pete Dinsmore, the same actor, the guy from Scrubs. And what's the other show that he's on? The Middle?
Well, that ended. Now he's on that bar show.
Okay. But
as some drunk.
I remember him. He will forever be the janitor from Scrubs to me. But we see him. He shows him that Emily has aged up 5 years and 11. Oh no, she aged up like 6 years. So she's the same age as everybody else now. And she's also gotten Flash abilities. So Mr. Densmore figures out that her molecules are vibrating so fast that she can move through matter and flash abilities. Lionel's pissed, and he says that she's a failed experiment and a huge liability, and you need to get her back, or I'm going to have to get commandos in there to, like, kill her, basically. So we go to Chloe and Lana, go to the town, and they're surprised that it's restored back to the way it was. And they find Emily, who's like, yeah, I'm the owner's daughter, and we decided that we're going to keep it exactly the way it was. It's going to remain a coffee shop, and ask if Lana can show her the ropes. And Emily asks Lana if she's sure she wants to leave town, and Lana's like, I don't know. And Emily goes upstairs.
She's a little creeped out.
Yeah. Because it's almost like you can feel that she's like a super fan of, like, I'm just a girl in a town. Like, why are you so about me?
Yeah.
And basically Emily goes upstairs and is like, look, we're already best friends. And then Lana runs into Mr. Dinsmore, and he's like, tells her that Emma is actually Emily. And he tries to get Lana to safety, except Emily flashes in, like zooms in, and does her phase hand again and kills him, knocks Lana out.
He gets Zalmond.
Oh, yeah. She throws Lana across the room, knocks her out, and then Lana wakes up in a Magneto-style prison where it's a clear box, but with, like, a bedroom inside. It's interesting and super creepy. So, and I believe there's no doors, right? Because the only way, like, Emily just, like, phases in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is interesting. It's like a gerbil cage, so it's completely clear. I do like how this actress plays the character. Like, she feels like this is the grown-up Emily, but like you said, this character in and of itself is not a good character. So we pop over, and Clark's talking to Martha, and he says, you know, him and Pia become better friends since he found out. And Martha's like, you know, I trust what you're going to do. And then I'm trying to remember if it's this episode or not. I don't know if it is. Is this when she brings up maybe Lana's not the one?
I don't think so.
Okay. So maybe I think, yeah, you're right. I think that's in next season. So Clark is cleaning up the barn, and oh no, he's moping in his loft because Lana never showed up for dinner. And Jonathan's like, you know, maybe there are reasons she didn't show up. And Clark's like, well, and Jonathan's like, I don't think you should tell her, but, you know, trust your instincts. And he's just like, you don't know why she's not here. And he's starting to, like, Jonathan's kind of feeling like Clark is in this point where he's kind of trying to, like, figure out how to say it. He can't really father Clark as much anymore or protect him. Like, Clark is kind of an adult. Like, he's going to be 18 because they're going to be going into senior year. So Clark's not really a child that he can protect anymore. It's kind of the feeling we get, like we see with Jonathan. And he has to let him make his own decisions. So the next thing we do is we pop into Lionel's office with Lex, and basically talking about there's an employee he wants to promote, but he's not sure he can trust him. Lex tries to advise him, and Lionel rips the wire off of his chest and is like, you know, you betrayed me. And Lex is like, you forced my hands when you put those Metron murders on me. I had to protect myself. And, you know, Lex is like, oh, is my life worth of all your obscure projects? And Lionel's like, you know, you shouldn't have asked, and, like, throws Lex out. And then when he leaves, Lionel gets the call from the FBI guy, Frank, who says that Lex doesn't have any evidence against him, but if he does, it'll stay buried, and that he is looking into the Ross kid while he is holding, and then the Frank guy is holding a file on Clark. Which, I don't know. This is, like, there's a lot of things in this episode I like and I don't like, but I feel like this scene in particular was, like, so out of left field. Like, I think they could have built up to it better, because they're just having a conversation, and then Lionel's like, you have a wire!
And they also could have built up the whole him, like, loader switching sides.
Yes. It just feels a little rushed. Like, this could have, like, they could have been planting seeds several episodes back, and it would have been better. So we go back to the town with Clark, and he's looking for Lana, and Emily's like, oh, she already left to Paris. And then Clark is pissed, and Emily goes to get Lana some dinner, and Lana tries to reason with her and saying they can be real friends if you let me out. And Emily says, like, Lana, you know that's not true, because you didn't save me when I drowned like I saved you. And Lana's like, and then she also tells Lana, no one's looking for you because I told everybody you already left Paris. Lana's like, ah, shit. So this is when Lex goes to Clark and is like, oh, the FBI is dropping the case against Lionel unless I find new evidence, and then they're going to charge me. They're both kind of freaked out, and Clark asks why Lex changed Lana's ticket, and Lex thinks he is all talking about the open-ended departure day, and Clark says that the Talon's new owner's daughter told him she left, and then Lex is like, the owner doesn't have a daughter, and Clark's like, oh, fuck. And he goes to the Talon to confront her, and then he sees Emily super speed through a wall. Oh man, this is like, I did not realize how much they pop around everywhere in this episode. So Lionel goes to see Chloe at the torch and asks her to help find Emily. He gives her the updated photo. Clark and Chloe meet and tell each other basically that, like, kind of bring all their information together and realize that Lionel is trying to find Emily before Lex does, because if Lex finds her, she used proof of his genetic testing and all his stuff that would put him in jail, and his cloning stuff. And they figure that Emily probably took Lana and is trying to use the tech to, like, clone Lana or something. And Clark says they usually played at Emily's house. And so they go over there. They look up the address, and Clark goes look. And basically we cut to Emily is having a tea party with Lana. And then this turns into something so ridiculous, which Lana hits her with the teapot and then tries to run away. And Emily catches her and then ties her to the bed and puts a gas pipe through the wall. And basically she's going to gas her out and then use the tech to, like, clone another one of her. Is that what is her plan?
I believe so.
Okay. It's, like, so convoluted. And basically Emily super speeds away. Clark uses he speeds there. He sees what's going on. He heat visions a water tower to take out Emily, knocks her out, and then he rescues Lana, I believe, here. Chloe tells Lex that Lionel and Morgan Edge murdered his parents, and Lex got a confession, but Lionel had his memory erased. So she basically reveals why his 7 things. She says she had a tape confession too, but it was erased. However, she reasons that Lex's money and power can restore it. Let's ask why she's telling him now. And because his psychiatrist and his investigator both met violent ends, she's like, that's why I didn't tell you, because I was afraid for my life. And she says, I can't get out from under Lionel by myself, and I need you to protect me. And Lex is grateful, but, like, he's also like, I don't know how good I can protect you. Which this all comes to play in the next episode. So the next thing we get, which is kind of out of left field a bit, but Pete's on his way home. He gets pulled over by FBI agent Loader. It's like, I want to ask you questions. I was like, oh, is this about my mother's, like, federal judgeship? And he's like, yeah, totally. Except he kidnaps him and puts him, like, in a place and beats the crap out of him. Demanding to know Clark's secret, assuming that because they're best friends, they know. She does. Lex shows up and pulls him off, revealing that Lionel paid Loader to have him drop the case and investigate Clark instead. Lex orders him to go back to Lionel's case and gives him the transcript of Lionel's voicemail. And Loader's like, oh, goddamn, I can't, like, ignore this. But knows that Clark is revealing a secret bigger than Lionel and Lex, and tells Pete that Clark was, confiding in him because Pete is probably a better friend. And Pete admits that he owes Lex for saving his life from Loader, and Lex is sure that Pete will return the favor for him someday when the time is right, which never comes to pass, I believe, right?
I believe so, because the next time Pete reappears
it's
is
a
in
stupid
season
gum
7.
thing, right?
It was the gum episode where he turns into, like, elongated man.
Yeah, he's like a Gumby, yeah. So, like, that never comes up. I think it's probably because they were like...
He's not Gumby, he's Gumby, damn it.
Yeah. So Pete goes to the forum and sees Clark, and he's like, yeah, like, Lex and Lionel are both interested in you, and I can't do this anymore because eventually, like, someone's going to get me.
And he says that he's scared that he's going to slip up. Like, he talks about how hard it is, how it really is, like, keeping a secret, because he's scared he's going to slip up, or he's going to get what happens to him in this episode would happen. And that Clark can't trust Lex.
Which this all goes into what happens next, which is, Clark is in his loft, and Lana shows up, and Lana's like, Emily escaped Belle Rev, like, the second, like, right after she was admitted, and asked what Clark wanted to tell her, but he's like, with what just happened with Pete, again, I can't go with her, and he gives her a kiss on the cheek, and is like, have a good time in Paris, and Lana's just like, seriously? She's like, I know that's not what you were going to tell me. And she just looks both disappointed and, like, just, like, beyond hurt, like, just almost angry. And because it's all on her face that she thought that Clark was going to try to talk her out. And she just says goodbye and then leaves. And basically Clark is like, he doesn't exactly what happened to Pete. He couldn't live with it if it happened to Lana. And then the next thing we get is Lex going to Lionel's office and asks Lionel about Emily. He then, like, basically Loader and all the FBI agents come in who arrest him for the murder of his parents. They take Lionel away in handcuffs, and Lex is in his office, closing his eyes. And that is how we close out this episode. So a lot kind of happens. It's like a very weird episode where there's like 5 stories going on at once that all kind of converge. So we get the wrap up of Pete. He gets his nice goodbye and he leaves. Lana, it goes to Paris, which will forever change her character in ways that are not the best. and Lionel going to jail or getting arrested and the beginning of that process, and Chloe and Lex kind of teaming up and kind of all being under the target of Lionel, as well as Pete kind of warning Clark about that, like, it's not just Lionel that's looking into him, but also Lex. So this is weirdly like an important episode because we get to like learn a whole bunch, but it is also like not a great episode at the same time. I would give this like a C plus, because oddly I actually think that this is probably Glover's worst performance, and we don't really get a lot of Schneider or Martha. And Lex is fine in this. Like, it's just like, it's a weird episode. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I should like it because of the writers, Satters and Peterson. But its character, the main villain is a character that no one likes, or that no one liked first time.
Well, there's almost two villains. To me, like, my biggest problem is like, there's too much going on. Like, this should be 3 separate episodes. Like, if you're going to do the Emily Dinsmore, that should be an episode. The FBI guy storyline where he's turned and then like turned back should be another episode. And then like him kidnapping Pete should be like another episode as well. Like, I feel like they could have broken this up a little bit better instead of shoving it all in one episode. Like, maybe if we cut out one of the other ones and like split this up. Because the Emily thing gets like dropped super fast. Like, it's a good half the episode, but it also gets, she's like kind of taken out of the picture. I don't know. What would you grade this one?
D.
A B? Okay. You're more.
A D.
Oh, D. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, there's like a lot in here, but it's just not enjoyable to watch. So did you have anything else you wanted to talk about this specific episode?
Not really.
Yeah. It's just like one of those goofy things. All right, so let's move on to the season 3 finale.
Thank God.
Yeah, so this is our 3rd time talking about Adrian Pilecki, but this is actually the first in real life thing that she did of the 3 things watched. So, and I'm trying to wonder, is she more sexualized than this or an Aquaman?
This.
Yeah.
By a country mile.
All right, so this was like done like a year before the Aquaman pilot, when she was like the one-off villain, and a lot of years before that Wonder Woman pilot. And then many years before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and even more before Orville. Like, she's a good actress and works a lot, but I like the idea.
This was about like a year or 2 before Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
Which she really shined in that role.
Yeah, she's a good actress. She's been in she's been in a ton of stuff. So
she was the biblical Sarah Connor.
Yeah, I don't think that she's bad in this. It's just like it's a weird idea, and when we get to it, but like it kind of will show like what we mean by like it's a weird character. So we open up with Adrian Pilecki naked in the woods, and there's a car about to hit her, and she just like slams her hand on it. The passenger
does a nice flip.
Yep, it flips over, and that guy's dead.
Yeah.
And then she walks to the Kent farm and says, "Hi, Clark. I'm Kara from Krypton." And I think that's like the cold open of the episode, right? Because I think that's when it cuts to the intro.
I like the look on Welling's face.
He was like, okay, naked chick, saying Krypton, all things going off. So when we come back, she's like, yep, I came out of the caves. She's talking to Clark and his parents, and she's here to take Kal-El home and so that Jor-El can answer all of his questions. When Jonathan's like, no, she gets like really pissed. And then when Lex shows up out of nowhere, she's just gone. And they're like, okay. And basically, so Lex is like, yep, they arrested my dad, but they're looking for people to testify, and there's not really like anybody to testify. And Clark is like, I'll testify at the hearing, to say that the doctor increased your or that Lionel ordered the doctors to increase your voltage, even though like they said that it could hurt you. And Lex guesses that, you knew about like the murder of my parents. And he's like, after what happened to you, I didn't like, he kind of says like, I was trying to protect you to him. And Lex is like, yeah, I can understand that since we're friends. They're like, you already saw what he did when I knew you didn't want him to worse.
Yeah, he also mentions that he didn't want Lex to die. Because that's what like Lionel would have done. It would have taken to the next step.
So we pop into jail, and Lionel is talking to Agent Loader and saying like, oh, you need to continue investigating Clark. And Loader's like, no, I don't. You're completely probably, I don't have to do anything. You're like, you have nothing. Like
you have nothing that interests me.
Yeah, you have no power whatsoever. Like, yeah, I'm not doing anything for you. So this is where we get to see the kind of
The Superman 1 scene.
yes. So then we pop over to Clark, and Kara flies him to the cave, and she's like, "Yeah, I've been here since the meteor shower, waiting until like the time was right." And Clark's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go right now until I kind of figure everything out." Then we go to jail again, and Lex is visiting, and Lionel reveals that to Lex that he was diagnosed with like a degenerative liver disease, and there's nothing that anybody can do. And Lex is like, "Yeah, okay, guy." I feel like this is kind of their take on the Lex getting cancer from kryptonite kind of plot idea that from the comic books and cartoons and such, but transferring it over to Lionel. They don't directly say it's because of the kryptonite, but I feel like it's pretty heavily implied that's why. They also don't really say cancer. They just say a disease. But it's also obviously the same disease that they gave to Adam and they gave to the other guy to try to cure.
Yeah, the rare liver disease.
Yep. The next day, Kara is talking to Jonathan and says, "You broke the covenant and, you got the power from Jor-El to bring Clark back, but you haven't lived up to your end of the bargain." And Clark and Martha are basically like, "What is going on?" And Jonathan's like, "I didn't believe like that the deal would come up like this soon." And we see that Loader is listening in, and Carol is like, "Hold on a second." Super speeds out and is like, "Oh, he's in his car." And I'm trying to remember, does she just like put her hands on it?
Well, no.
She
super speeds to him and says like, "You should leave." And so he's like, "What the hell are you?" And he puts to the metal. Speeds off. She speeds, or it's one of those things where he drives fast away, and she's already where he almost hits her, and she just puts her hands on the hood.
Yeah, it like disintegrates, right?
Yeah, and Clark is like, "You just killed that man," and she's just like he didn't feel anything.
Yeah, but it's also like that is not a Kryptonian power that they have seen yet. And so
that's
Martha,
devil power.
Yeah, Martha's like, "Jonathan, why did you like not tell us what the deal is? Like, what is going on?" And so then we go to Jonathan
taking the teacups that they offered Kara to Chloe, and basically asking her to find out, like, to do a tat test, see who this really is.
Yeah, to check the fingerprints and such. While this is going on, Lana goes to the farm and is like, "Oh, can you take me to the airport tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course." And then, "Is there any way you will?" And she's like, "There's still time for you to tell me what you were going to tell me before I leave." And then she sees Kara, and Clark's like, "Oh, that's my cousin from California." Which, if we haven't said it yet, but there's like, the name Kara is obviously Supergirl, if you watched a Supergirl TV show or know anything about comics. So at this point, when you're watching the episode, you're like, "Oh, maybe this is their version of Supergirl." So that's the whole cousin angle of it. So she's like, "Oh, maybe I should find somebody else to drive me if you have visitors." And Clark's like, "No, I'll take you to school. I want to be there for you." She's like kind of happy about it, and they kind of talk that they can talk in the car on the way to the airport. And then Kara's like, "You shouldn't go by her, even though she loves you, like, it's not meant to be." And basically says like, "Everybody around you will betray you. You're different from them. You can't be with them." And basically is like, "We are the last Kryptonians. We are meant to be the new Adam and Eve of Krypton," kind of a thing.
And it was very incesty, very Game of Thrones.
Also, like, if you go back and watch, we were talking about before we started recording, like, the first Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, the first Star Wars, it's before he wrote that they were going to be brother and sister. So there's definitely a lot of sexual tension between Luke and Leia. So yeah, but you're right. Game of Thrones is a little different because that's like outright. This is a little bit more like Kara's like throwing her sexuality like at Clark hardcore, and Clark's like, it's strangely like he's like the virginal kind of character. So like he's just like, "I don't know what to do with all of this," which is kind of how they play him like much of the series, because he gets like a lot of women kind of like naked around him like all the time, because it happens very early on. We get Lois next season, and we'll talk about that. So the next thing we get is Clark gets a package in the mail and from Lionel, and what's inside? The key. So Lex and Chloe review some medical records, and Lex is still like basically to figure out that like, oh yeah, Lionel is really sick. And Chloe says like, "I'm going to testify no matter what." And Lex is like, "Yeah, we're still going to push this. And this is like the only way to kind of deal with it." Clark goes to the jail and confronts Lionel. He was like, "Yeah, why don't you try looking into this one room? It's like the only one that's locked." And he's like, "Whatever, I don't believe you."
Which, this is actually sort of like a carryover from last season, when Dr. Bryce was going through the house and through the mansion, and there was the one room that she couldn't open. She tried the key on, didn't work, and 3, one of the security told her to get away from.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, he says he's not going to do it, but he goes right there and does it. And he opens up the room and sees the entire Lex investigation into the Kents, specifically Clark. And right as he's looking at everything, which it is a cool ass room. Like, I love the bullets that are hanging down, like from the fishing wire. And Lex is like, I can totally explain this. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, this is everything, like, you've been investigating me. He's like, actually, he tries to spin it, and I kind of get his spin. He's like, this isn't really about you. It's about me. He's like, how many times have I almost died? Like, and then I think he brings up that guy was trying to hunt him, thinking that he was a meta.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, it's not that I think there's something with you. It's like, I think I'm a meta, and I've been trying to figure it out. Like, how have these things, like, how have I survived so much? And Clark has none of it and leaves. And basically we get, this is the broken trust.
It's part of the prophecy.
Yes. So he leaves, and basically Lex is like, I doesn't know whether or not Clark is still going to testify. Clark goes to the loft, and he talks to his mom, talks to Martha about the betrayal, and she's like, and he's just basically like, you know, maybe I should go with Kara. And then he's like, then he kind of remembers Lana, and basically he's like, oh crap, I forgot about her. And then he goes there with the flowers and sees that she took a shuttle there, and then sees that Lex is there saying goodbye to her. And basically we go to the conversation between the two of them, and basically Lex is like, I didn't want you to leave without having like a friendly face. And then Lana looks over and sees that Clark is across the street, and then she kind of runs there, but then he's gone. And then finds the rose that he had, that he was going to give her, like, on the ground. And then Clark shows up. You know, we go to the courthouse, and they're like, oh my god, this Clark can actually show up. But then he does, and Lionel's denied bail because obviously billionaire. And Clark
just straight up tells Lex, yeah, this friendship is done.
Yeah, you betrayed my trust for like the last time. And Lex is broken about it. Like, he is very broken about it. Because I don't know, I think we get to it. There's like a really good scene next season where Lex is like, you're like kind of my divining rod to like keep me away from going into the darkness that is my father. And Clark basically will go, I don't think that there's a possibility. Like, there's no way that you can leave the darkness. It's taking you over too much.
Is that the episode with the two Lexes?
I think it happens before that, but then that also like,
because
really
that is a amazing
that is a great episode. Yeah. So we go back to the farm. Clark is still like, kind of, he's just like completely broken over. He basically he's now lost both of his best friends, the woman that he loves, all in like basically 2 days, or a couple of days. Kara's there and is like, you know, it's okay.
She plays the mom card.
You know, she's like, you know, you have all this love, like there's everything, like there's stuff, like, you know, and Clark is like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then, you know, out of nowhere, of course, Chloe shows up and is like, yep, the fingerprints on the thing belong to Lindsay Harrison. And that's who Kara really is. And so they go to the caves to stop Kara and Clark. So they, you know, we cut to Kara and Clark holding hands, and the door opens up, or like the fissures open up in the cave wall, and we get a bright light. And Jonathan's like, haha, this is all like Jor-El's like screwing with us. And he's like, Kara isn't really who she says she is. She's just a girl who disappeared on the day of the meteor shower. And then Clark's like, oh, you're lying to me again? And it's basically like, I'm not going to go in. And then we have like Jor-El's voice come back, and then Kara just kind of like dissipates. Trying to like, she doesn't like disintegrate. She just kind of, it's like an illusion. She just like is gone.
Yeah, and Jor-El just says she has fulfilled her, or she's been, her purpose has been filled.
Yeah, I never quite got if like she was always dead and he just used her looks to kind of...
like a hologram?
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for, because I don't think he kills her. I think she just died before, like in the meteor shower. So basically a thing of like a... not the greatest special effects come out. This like reminded me of like Indiana Jones. So a rope of energy comes out, and he's just like gonna choke out Jonathan, or Jor-El's gonna kill Jonathan if Clark doesn't come. And Jonathan's like, don't worry about it, Clark. I've lived my life. Clark's like, no, I can't do this. And then goes inside. And then Martha, you know, then we come back to the farm, and Martha comes out, and there is a Kryptonian symbol burned into the field. And so they don't know what that means. And then we get our awesome final kind of thing that this for season 3, which is pretty much the ending of Godfather to a T. Like it is so well done. So the field gets burned. We go to the Chloe and her dad are going into a house for protective custody. And as soon as they basically open the door, the entire house explodes. We cut to Lionel in prison, getting his head shaved, getting those glorious long locks cut off, with this awesome orchestra music. We talked about it before.
Lacrimosa by Mozart.
Yes. And then Lex is drinking from his brandy, and he drops the glass and like collapses to the ground. We cut to John. Yeah, because obviously it's poisoned. Jonathan is on the ground in the cave completely unconscious while we cut into the cave, like the fissure, and Clark is just floating in a void. Kind of like, I'm trying to think, it's a little bit like Terminator looking because he's just naked.
Oh, you mean when they try time travel?
Yeah, but he's also just kind of floating in a kind of
beam of light.
Yeah, it's very much like the kind of weird, like he's almost like in a prism. They'll do it again later on in a different way. But I do actually like this visual where Jor-El's like remaking him, and thus we get the final line of, he shall be reborn. So, and that is our awesome season 3 finale. Might be the best season finale of all the series, of like the series in general, because it is like such a major cliffhanger. So let's talk about like this episode. I would definitely give it a minus. Like it is a great season. That like closing thing brings it all the way up. I'm not the super fan of all the Kara stuff. Is the only reason why it's not like a full A. But that ending moment is just so glorious.
Fun fact: originally they weren't going to shave Lionel.
Mm-hmm.
John Glover actually came up with the idea.
Oh wow, that is interesting that he's the one that came up with it.
And the Lindsay Harrison character, I think she's a comic book character.
Oh really? You can do a quick Google search. I was looking because the guy that actually delivered the package with the key has been in like a bunch of shows I've seen. So it's like interesting to see. He was also a Power Ranger.
Oh no. It was just the fact that they're homaging Power Girl and Supergirl.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like this, I think this is a really good episode. Like there's definitely a lot of awesome things going on here. Did you have any thoughts on this episode in particular, or
you want to talk? So great.
Yeah, the ending specifically is like it's as good, I think, as the other one where when Lex is in the Bell Rev and it's like him like being crazy in there and Lionel on the other side of the glass. Like it's very similar to that episode, or like that specific scene in that episode. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the ending. So why don't we talk about like the season as a whole in general? Like, so I do feel like for me, this is like a massive turning point for the show. This is us getting away from our Meteor Freak of the Week, yeah, and going to like a larger plot, like season-wide plot.
Well, in 2 seasons, we're gonna get the infamous line from Superman 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll preview season 4 like in a second. Like I'm looking through these episodes right now, and like of the episode, it is an interesting season because like we start off with Clark being Cal and Metropolis, the whole Morgan Edge thing, the Meteor Freak Hunter. We get introduced to Perry Mason. We get the cool flashback episode. We get the
White.
Yeah, for the Perry White episode. What did I say?
You said Perry Mason.
Oh, God. We get the episode where Lex is going crazy. We get the Bell Rev episode. We get the learning of the super hearing. We get Hereafter, which is a great episode where we get to see people's futures. The introduction to Alicia. The Jonathan Hart stuff. The final episode with Dr. Swan, Christopher Reeve. We get Memoria, which we get introduced to the we get introduced to the name of Clark's birth mother. There are some bad episodes in this season as well. There are several. We have like the bad episodes are Magnetic, which is the kid in the fair, and Velocity is one of the worst episodes of all time. And we get the whole Adam saga, which is pretty terrible. But I would say for the most part, this season is
the Adam saga is better than the Jason Teague affair.
Oh my God. Well, it's only like 5 episodes as well. The Jason Teague thing is like 2 seasons.
No, it's 1 season.
Oh, that's all season 4? I thought it carried over to season 5 too.
No, it's only like, okay, spoilers. There's a scene in I want to say during the senior prom, since Lois and Clark end up going to the dance. Lana shows up. And this is after, and it sort of sets in the motion stuff that happens in season 5 and 6.
Yeah, I do think to kind of like go on what you're saying, like this is kind of like I feel like this entire season was treated by the writers as a good transition, especially compared to even though the next season is like their senior year. This season is much more of the changing Clark and the characters from being teenagers to young adults. And we especially get that at the end of the season. It's a lot more of them kind of finding themselves, all of them. And then the kind of next season is the challenges of like growing, like being an adult more or less, like the beginning stages of that. kind of becoming an adult in the real world and not having to go to high school and all that stuff, and like what the challenge bring to them. So there's a lot of like awesome stuff, and there are parts like season 4 has a lot of amazing things. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about season 3 in general?
I have some notes from the Smallville wiki.
All right, awesome.
The beginning of the season, Exile. Jonathan temporarily gets Kryptonian powers, which have remaining negative effects on his health. Clark develops super hearing. Clark also discovers the impact of the sun's effect on his powers. Lex breaks free from Lionel. Lana breaks free from the Talon. And despite, as always, like Lionel can be seen as the antagonist, Jor-El can also be seen as an antagonist.
Which that relationship or that kind of the two of them will forever be connected in the show starting in season 4.
Yeah. Pete leaves or goes to Wichita with his mom.
Yeah, so Pete leaves the show basically. He returns in one episode in season
7.
6? 7, okay.
Because that's when the showrunners, the original showrunners, were leaving. They were leaving after season 7. So they wanted to wrap up everything.
Yep. Which, speaking of wrap up, so this season we get revisited and get rid of several recurring characters. Some
of them being Helen Bryce, Eric Summers, Ian Randall, Emily Dinsmore.
Yep. So that's Lex ex-wife number 2, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
The doctor from Dr. McIntyre from the Smallville hospital in Smallville.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't appear for about 6 more seasons. Or no, read that wrong. 3 more seasons. Episode 6, or not episode 6, season 6. Maggie Sawyer returned to the show after last season. She returns for a final time in season 5. Christopher Reeve makes his final appearance on the show, as he died the following year. But he is referenced again in the next season and season 7.
Mm-hmm.
We get our first mention of Lois by Chloe, and just to show how old Lou and I are, the season finale for this episode was paired with the end of Angel as a series.
Yes, which was the spinoff of Buffy with David Boreal as the star, who's had like 4 hit shows after this, I feel like.
Yeah.
He's like one of those guys that's like just crushed TV for forever.
He was actually up for the role of the male lead in Resident Evil.
Really? He would have worked that way. Like, I'm just looking at stuff, like, I did not know that he was in a Crow movie, which I think he was in the last one. But he did voice Hal Jordan in New Frontier, which is the awesome animation where it's like the Golden Age kind of versions.
No, it's the Silver Age.
Silver Age, I'm sorry. Yeah, Silver Age version. But yeah, he was around for forever. Buffy was his second thing he ever did. He was first on Married with Children. They went from Buffy from 97 to 03, Angel 99 to 04. Then he did a couple of like things that he was just kind of on. Then he did Bones for 12 years.
Yeah, that was his big moneymaker.
Yeah.
During the season, about 8 Smallville comics came out. Sojourn, The Few the Proud, ID, Magic, Chronicle, Parenthood, Exploit, and Captive.
Yeah, at some point we're going to have to go and do a discussion on the Smallville comic, but...
Oh no, these are the ones that were not...
These are non-canon?
Well, some of them take place... Some of them are like... Sojourn is a preview, or takes place between season 2 and season 3.
Mm-hmm.
ID is after Magnetic, and Secrets and Lies are between Memoria and Forsaken. So.
Yep. So season 3 is pretty good. Here's like a quick look at what we'll see in season 4. Clark returns, but he's not Clark. He has been reprogrammed, and he is seeking out the Stones of Power, not to be confused with the Infinity Stone. Lois shows up, who is Chloe's cousin, who is trying to figure out what the hell, and why no one is investigating her cousin and uncle's death. We also get introduced to her father as well. We get the Jason Teague, Lana Lang story that starts in Paris.
We get the horrible witches episode.
Oh god, yes. We get the witches episode, Clark playing football again, a body switch episode, and I'm trying to remember, is this the 100th? No, the 100th episode is in season 5, right?
That's when there are multiple death.
Yes.
That's in the episode, and then one of them has to stick, and it's a very memorable one.
We get our first appearance of Bart Allen. We get Mr. Mitzelplex. We get a kind of Scarecrow-esque episode. We get the return of Alicia. We get them thinking about going to college. We sort of get Crypto. We get a trip to China. We get to meet more people from Lois's family. We get this, what you talked about before, the Split Lex episode, which is amazing. Prom. So in a second episode where there are multiple episodes where Clark doesn't know who he is. We get Lana and Clark being parents. And we finish out with the second meteor shower. So there is a lot that goes on in this season. There are some horrendous episodes in this season, and there's also some really, really amazing. But there's probably 2 or 3 of the worst episodes in the series in this season. But I'm excited to get into it. Did you have any specific memories that like pop out to you when you think about season 4?
It's basically when the show really started running, got momentum and started running with it.
Yeah. To me, this is like the season where they start to introduce the larger DC world.
Or the larger Superman world.
Yes, the larger Superman world, or like kind of the DC comics in general, because we get Lois, we get Bart, Mitzelplex, like we get to see like a much larger kind of thing that continues on after this season. But yeah, I am excited for this. It's our first introduction to like a new season regular. Well, I don't know. She doesn't get really season regular status in this season 4, right? She's like
she's more of a recurring character. She gets main cast status in the following season.
Mm-hmm. But we do get a bunch of like real interesting like new characters. We get a couple of before they were famous, I believe, because the one I forgot that she was in this. Colby Smulders is in an episode, future Maria Hill. And I'm trying to remember if there's any other people that end up in this show that I do not remember offhand. Oh, we get the final appearance of Whitney in an episode. And because we do not get Dr. Swan, we also get his partner for 3 of the Superman movies. Margot Kidder appears. So we do get a lot in season 4, which is, for the most part, I would say very good. We'll see if we like it as much as we did season 3. But I don't know. Is there anything else we want to talk about season, like a previewing season 4, or
should we talk about what we're going to be watching as our
bonus?
Yeah.
So for our third very special bonus episode, we are going to watch the god-awful 1997. It's called like Justice League of America?
Yeah, pilot? Even though it's sort of a take on the Justice League International.
So this has some of the worst costumes.
Some of the worst acting.
We have the bad guy is the Weatherman, which is a Flash villain. So we have, I'll be wrong. It is Guy Gardner. So this is the only live action appearance of Guy Gardner. We get Ice, Ray Palmer Adam, Fire.
Wally West.
No, it actually says Barry Allen in the IMDb. There are some interesting people in here that like cast wise. There's David Krumholtz, who's been in a ton of stuff. Michelle Hurd, who was in, I believe she's in Daredevil season 2. She's been in a bunch of things. We also get John Jones in this.
A very fat John Jones.
Yeah. So we get a bunch of, it's a thing. If you ever Google Justice League before the more recent movies come out, like this will come out. So it is a long pilot. I guess it was supposed to be for like an hour TV show. So it's like it's an hour and 20, it's almost an hour and a half. And it is no bueno. But I've never seen it. I've only seen the images and some clips from it. So I'm excited to see it. So that will be coming out next weekish. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that's our next thing. So don't forget to check out our other shows. Every Thursday is comics. That's on the same stream here. You can find Legion of Toon as part of the Los Horror Podcast Network. Just search Legion of Toons. Alan, you do another show for Los Horror?
Yes, Los Horror Games Podcast. Myself, Emma Watkins, and Josh Miller talked about PS5. We talked about the Square Enix E3 rumors, and I went in depth, and I say in depth because I spent nearly half podcast talking about Days Gone.
All right. Hey, don't forget to check all that out. Rate, review, and subscribe to everything. Go to YouTube. Just search. If you go to losthorror.wordpress.com, look up all the articles, subscribe to all the podcasts, and tell a friend. But that just about does it. So we'll check you guys next time. I'm Lou Gonzalez.
I'm Alan Muir.
And this podcast stands for truth, justice, and the American way.